After over 300,000 miles, 12 dozen breakdowns nervous, one too many midnights, and a whole bunch of broken laws later, I've come here, from out of the rain and into this rest area, caught 22 miles between you and me, watching the information man behind his information booth, juggling predictable conversation with folks who split like iceberg lettuce and who believe that somehow the flat lines of small talk will give us life. I want them to leave, like a big deal orchestra removing itself from the string section so I can fiddle with fate and make music. There is a distance the size of bravery. It forms like words in the mouth of a baby reaching out for the point where all things meet. On one end of it sits an information man, who I imagine holds down his second job as church bartender behind locked doors leading to a bell tower that we will never get to see. Sinners. On the other end of this space, I'm standing like shoe polish on an overstocked shelf, hoping that one day someone will pick me to make things better. This is not a showdown or a shootout. We are not facing off, but I can feel the rumble between dusk and dawn, as if the chance to come clean with myself will be outlawed unless I relax. Whew. I have heard that if you pull a bent breath through the second hole of a harmonica, tuned to the key of Georgia, while a train moves by on the tail end of dusk, there is a good chance you will finally know what it means to rest. I have not yet rested. It takes a long time to make love with someone who hated themselves. It feels like I've been standing here for exactly that long when at last the rain outside, it drops off, takes everyone in this rest area with it except for me and the information man. And that's got me thinking tonight, I'm going to get the answer. And you know what I'm talking about, the answer, emphasis on the answer. So I put my best foot forward and take the kind of deep breath that gives me away as someone who deals with anxiety and odd numbers every minute. In between it, the information man's eyes grab me, then shift back and forth like mopping floors with the sweat I sweat in battles against myself. He's got me locked in and is smiling. If you've never been rocked back by the presence of purpose, this poem, it's too soon for you. Return to your mediocrity, plug it into an amplifier, and rethink yourself, because some of us are on fire for the answer. I'm ready for your little rejection and rebirthing balance and my stutter steps when the info guy finally pipes up like C.R. Avery on a piano box, and he says to me, listen, if I didn't have so much of this life all wrong, he said, I would have gotten it right by now. I talk a whole bunch, but I really only know a few things, so I'm not saying to follow along verbatim here. I'll just tell you the things I tell myself, the things I know. You can see what sticks. Okay, I know. Our shoes, they were stitched from songs about highways. The best songs are the ones about Georgia, even though I've never been there. It's the only place I still believe in Jesus. I know no matter what it is you believe in, you have to spare yourself the futility of making fun of God, because that guy hasn't even talked in like ever. I know troubleshooting yourself in the foot and acting center of your own universe. It's a tricky dichotomy to deal with, but yes, you are the center of the universe. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. So as the middle of space and everything floating in it, it is your job to know that the emptiness is just emptiness, and the stars, they're just stars, and the flying rocks fucking hurt. So please stop inviting all these walls into wide open spaces. I know everything is out there, y'all. That's why they call it everything. I know there are times you will lay your head to rest. You'll have a moment of brilliance that grows into a perfect order of words, but you're going to fall asleep instead of painting them down on paper. When you wake up, you will have forgotten the idea completely and miss it like a front tooth, but at least you know how to recognize moments of brilliance, because even at your worst, you are fucking incredible. It comes honest. So return to yourself, even if you're already there, because no matter where you go or how hard you try or what you do, the only person you're ever going to get to be, and I know it, thank God, God is you.
I love the ending. The punctuation there. Hey, who is the information man to you, buddy? Or is it like an abstract?
That's such a therapist question, dude. That's like an inkblot test. Don't fuck with me, Kim.
I'm not fucking with you. I'm curious. For me, it would be as you were saying that poem, I was thinking about internet. I was thinking about social media. I was thinking about everything that is in front of our face, all around. And now it's going to become, with Meta and all this shit, it's going to become virtual, meaning kind of like that Tom Cruise movie where he's moving slides and shit. We're headed that way. And so, as you were talking about the information,
Okay.
man, I thought about that. That's what came to my mind.
Wow, that's deep. Thank you. The thoughts that I've had. This is from 2004, and it originally came up because I was standing in line behind someone in the Netherlands, uh, angry older fella, English guy, and the information man where we were was unable to understand him, and the guy said, um, "Can you please speak English?" And the first thought in my head was, I don't know much, but I know when they're in the Netherlands, they speak Dutch. and um, and then I thought in my head, of all the things I know for sure in this life, and the first thing that came up was a line that's not even in the poem, and it's, if you lay a creek under a river, it will overflow. And it just kept going from there. And eventually, I think the information man became something like the gambler, Kenny Rogers, the gambler. And then it turned into C.R. Avery, who was a guy I toured with off and on for years. Also was out there with Billy Bragg, and his name was C.R. Avery. I thought the world of him. And so that's why he ends up in the poem toward the end there.
Oh, hey, in the room, put in the chat what your definition of the information man is. The other one is someone who has a lot of information but says nothing. To me, the information man, because I'm less about information these days and more about, being and who you are. And so a lot of people who talk a lot but say nothing. Well, like myself, I guess.
Yeah.
You think that's funny, Bunny?
I'm just agreeing with you, man. I'm just here to support you, John.
Okay. Today's touchy subject is, it's kind of double-sided. We have here. I'm going to tell you what it is, but we're also going to talk about a different side of this. Discussing issues behind the issues back. Today's touchy subject is about directness.
Yeah.
And so, how does that land for you, and why now? Why? Because I feel like you came up with it for a reason. So why directness?
Well, just so everybody knows, and we're really direct here, John Kim usually texts me 24 hours before the podcast and says, "What's this week's touchy subject?" So I try and come up with something on the fly. I offered the first one I offered this week was regarding the bumper sticker. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention, and I think that's bullshit. We can touch that touchy subject. And the other one I said was about directness. There's, for example, there is someone in my family. Maybe I can't be too direct live in case they're listening for their own protection. But there's somebody in my family who never tells me to my face what's going on for them, and there's a lot of resentment I can tell that's been built up from them by their posts. And it's family, so I will inevitably see a lot of their posts. Everything from posting, this is someone who clearly knows I live in Hollywood and act and do my thing out here. And there's been several posts since the Trump administration and beyond about how useless our jobs are and how important other jobs are, like in the Marines, for example, or doctors. And so I feel like there's a lot that they want to say and should say it directly to me. Because of that, because of it being built up, I now feel like I want to say a lot back to them. And then it just goes on back and forth until you have me on a podcast not speaking directly to them. And I find that the solution in this life has been for me to just speak directly to somebody, and confrontation isn't all that scary unless you're dealing with somebody who cannot stand the idea of being wrong. That's when it gets touchy. Do you know anybody like this, John?
Did you see? Okay. So let me first of all, me texting you 24 hours before the podcast what the touchy subject is. If I don't text you, then I don't know what the. I'm assuming you're saying it's too late. Like days before, correct?
Or give me an
What the
idea.
Well, you said John texted me 24 hours before the podcast what the
Ah,
touchy subject is, but
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you got to text me too. Talk about directness.
Yeah, then directly text me an idea, mister.
Oh, instead of asking you the question.
11 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yes. So here's a good example of Buddy being direct, which I do appreciate. Did you see in our locker room thread what I texted Andy?
I did. Boy,
Yeah.
good job.
So that was very direct.
That was extremely
very direct. And that came from me sitting with it for a while after I responded to him privately in DM, because he privately sends me a lot of Asian jokes. It's my fault. It's my fault because over the last decade, I've promoted that. And from the 80s, I've always made fun of myself and my ethnicity as a ticket into the locker room of acceptance. So, now obviously I'm not into it. So it's kind of confusing for friends when I stop doing that. And that's how they connect to me. So in DM, as he keeps sending me these, Asian jokes, I said, hey, you know what? I want to stop now. I think it's okay that I want to stop now. I don't think they're funny anymore. So you could send them to other people, but don't send them to me. And then after that, he sent another Asian joke to all of us in a text thread. And I sat with it. Instead of reacting, I sat with it. And I said, okay, is it really a big deal? Is he being light? He's not a racist. He does this for humor or whatever, or as a way to connect. On a deeper level, I think he's doing it to prove he's not a racist, which is interesting, right? And so I sat with it for a while, and then I was like, you know what? It's not even a racist thing. It's a respectful thing. So it doesn't matter what the video was about. I respectfully asked him not to do something, and he did it. So it's not a race thing. It's a friendship thing. And so that's when I decided, you know what? I'm going to text him and say, hey, listen, after I privately said, don't do this, you're doing this. And I'm also pulling from a curious place, not not from hate or annoyance. Why you keep doing this? And then he said, oh, I feel bad. And then hopefully he won't do it anymore. But that was me being direct.
I followed along attentively and pulling for you. There was no need to pull for you because you had such agency over the situation. And it was really an exciting thing to watch after having watched it for years. And I will slightly disagree. I know there's a lean for both of us to want to protect them, but there's definitely a race issue in there. It's the whole point of the uprising currently is to point out to us white folk what we've been missing and how it is systemic and how we're fucking up. And that is a big part of it. I know there's an irony.
I agree.
There's an irony to it big time. I want to be able to, I want to be able to make I don't want to really, but I could make Asian jokes in front of our other friends just to show them how tight we are and that, I'm just joking. And it's so, it's so over the top that it couldn't possibly be true, which is the case with Andy. He loves you so much that he couldn't possibly, negatively mean any of it. But what happens is some of those jokes are funny. Some of those stick and they constantly make you the butt of the joke. Whether it's gay or Asian, whatever it may be, it is nonetheless not big me, big you. It is big me, little you to some degree.
Did you call me little me? Because that's
no. Come on, John.
Ever since the arm wrestle, it's always been little John. I agree with you, man. And I'm trying to take ownership.
You bring up the arm wrestle and dip back out.
What's that?
Here's the deal. Here's what happened, everyone, with the arm wrestling.
It happened, 3 years ago?
Maybe 4.
And, by the way, when it happened, I didn't know it was going to be this big of a deal. We were just doing it for fun.
You can't do this to me live. Yes, it's a big deal. You cheated. You made me laugh. And then you won't give me a rematch. It was so close. So I have video footage of this.
Hey, you watch MMA, right? Who's the badass Khabib? You know who Khabib is, right? He's already retired.
I'm fighting Nate on
He beat like everyone. He was like amazing, and then he retired very fast.
no, I don't
I
know him.
think he's
I haven't kept up with the new guys for years.
yeah, he's Russian, and he just came in out of nowhere, dominated, beat Conor McGregor, everyone, and then
Is
he
this when
retired
Nate
very
Diaz is
fast.
about to fight?
No.
Okay.
He looks like him, but no. And I think Dana White offered him $100 million to fight, and he's like, no, I don't want him. He's retired and he's very young. He's like 30 something. Anyway, my point saying that is I'm pulling a Khabib. I went in fast. We did the arm wrestle. I don't think I cheated, but I won, and now I'm retired. That is yesterday.
I think cheating might have been overdoing it, but there was an element of sway I didn't see coming, and I didn't know how that video would spread and hurt.
Going back to what's important, I do believe Andy has a big heart. I do love him. I don't judge him for the jokes. Oh shit! I said his name. Shit. I didn't say his last name.
It's getting deleted this week.
Dude, I love how this is the only podcast where it's fucking experimental. We're always on the edge. Things go sideways. We throw boomerangs, come back around. Sometimes they don't.
Okay,
But that's
so
like
here's where I want to go with this boomerang now. Then, if I may, John, may I just jump ship? Here's the deal.
You don't ask me for permission. You can do whatever you want.
Well, it was rhetorical. The whole direct thing, as I was taught, I come from a family who are so passive aggressive and have never realized that if you just say what you want, you'll get what you need.
Yes.
That we can't read each other's minds, and we're all so fucking moody. It would be impossible to anyways, double that of any other family who already are communicating directly, by the way, the secure folks. And it's always driven me crazy because when I do try to communicate with someone directly and make it easy, if they're not open to if there's any chance that they'll feel wrong, it sometimes makes it worse. So that's where it was born of this week, of just continually watching. Like there was a post from one of them that said it was like a misspelled Republican meme, and it said 10 things. It was like, I never cared you were gay until you started shoving it down my throat. I never cared they were black until they started, I don't fucking know. It was like raising their voice, some equivalent of that, and I'm just reading these things and I'm like, dude, you have to have me in mind when you're posting these things.
Yeah.
And so I want to go storming in, but as we were starting this episode, having not hashed out the touchy subject and the trajectory of it, really, I'm realizing that me being on this show is just doing exactly what I'm accusing them of. So I need to have this conversation when I go home. And I've decided yesterday, actually in the bathroom, I decided that conversation is just going to look like a series of questions from me. I need a series of questions answered, and there's not going to be much of me having a mouthful of answers. That I think is going to be helpful instead of just stating things directly.
I love that. The power of the question. So when someone says be direct, they assume that there's an exclamation mark after that sentence, and that doesn't have to be the case. If you're actually from curiosity pulling questions, that's more powerful. Hey, I wonder why you said that. What did you mean by that? Or whatever. You asking them a lot of questions can be a form of directness. So thank you for pointing that out.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's so funny that we talk about the UFC randomly in here today, because this is real. There was a moment, there's always been moments of modeling directness, but there was a guy, and I think it was the second season of The Ultimate Fighter. He ended up becoming the middleweight champion, Michael Bisping. And he was one of the first in that season of The Ultimate Fighter. Spoiler alert, he won. But before he did,
Can I add another spoiler alert? That'll be the spoiler alert for the documentary as well.
Is this about the documentary? If you haven't seen the Michael Bisping documentary, just turn this off for the next 30 seconds, because this is a great spoiler. Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah, he won and he was blind.
He beat Anderson Silva with one eye.
Okay.
He beat Luke Rockhold with one eye. So here's the deal. I'm glad you did that spoiler, so I can say express fully what I'd like to about him. When I saw him in that Ultimate Fighter house, I really admired him, and he modeled for me direct communication. The house was just full of drama. It's a reality TV show, and Michael Bisping was just direct and there was no chance for miscommunication because he was very direct in everything he said to everybody, all the questions he asked and what he had to say. And if one of the guys' ego was out of control and they try to mumble some shit or say some shit, he would clarify, what did you say, and but in a very direct way. Later, he went on to be a coach on The Ultimate Fighter, and I found him just filthy annoying the way he egged on the other coach. So it sort of offset it. And now, bring it back full circle, just on a selfish level. When I saw that Michael Bisping documentary, and they revealed that motherfucker had been blind for that last half of his career when he won the middleweight belt and beat Anderson Silva with one eye. Anybody who knows Anderson Silva knows what a big deal that is. And I hope you turn this off for 30 seconds before that spoiler happens. or more than 30 seconds, shit.
Bring it back to directness.
Yeah, so now I want to directly address the other idea, which is the bumper sticker, if I may. Because I think I'm done saying what I have to say about Michael Bisping. He was a model for me in directness, despite anything else I didn't like about him. The dude, there was no chance for miscommunication. Now, I'm going to try and move this into a completely different subject, and maybe they'll connect, doesn't matter. The original thing that I offered up for this week's touchy subject was it just keeps coming up again recently, the bumper sticker. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. And I find that projection to be bullshit. You won't find me ever intentionally shirking my duties and awareness, politically and otherwise. There are moments where I need to hide away and recharge. And in that recharge, I usually discover that where my outrage came when I started my whole political journey, it was during the Bush administration, and I spent all 8 years just fucking beside myself, outraged, and I never actually helped a thing except the outrage. When it boils down to it, I was just outraged, and I encouraged outrage. When the truth is, that's like that outrage is on the outer ring of my ripple effect. It goes off into places like Syria and Nigeria and Ukraine and Yemen. It goes out into these places I can't actually touch. My outrage is just out there, and I can't control it, and it's flailing around out there. But what I can control is the inner ring of my ripple effect, the core of my ripple effect. And it is so important. It cannot be overstated that it does begin with us, and that ripple effect, if we're actually kind and not just spreading, it penetrates. When I walk around outraged, I'm a transparent guy. It penetrates that I'm outraged. It penetrates that I'm not happy. But when I take the time to meditate, when I'm in my practice, when I'm on point, I know I affect everyone around me in a positive manner. Does that cure Syria and Yemen and Nigeria and Ukraine and what's happening there immediately? No. But if everyone starts actually following through on the reality of that science, does it help? 100%. All that said,
sorry.
Go ahead. The last thing I want to say is there was a woman talking to I can't remember her name. I don't even know exactly what I was watching on Instagram, but she was calling out one of the pharmaceutical company heads and she was calling him out directly about how Truvado is $2,000. The PrEP pill that prevents HIV is $2,000 here in America. And it's $8 in Australia.
Hmm.
And she was calling him out. Uh, and I and I reposted, and I want people to follow her lead in the ways that things can be done politically. So I'm not just saying, it's all or nothing, like just be with the core of your ripple effect and be happy, or there's only outrage. There is the happy medium where a woman like that leading the charge with all the right questions and demeanor and representation shows up skilled and chill and calling this douchebag out. Yeah, for sure we can do those things, but it cannot be overstated that we personally all have to find ways to eradicate, to dissolve our own suffering before we start being outraged about everything we can't affect.
I love the flag you're waving, and I got to say, outrage alone is irresponsible. If you want to be outraged, okay, but there's a responsibility in doing it, right? Because if it's just a reaction and not a response, then outrage is contributing to the outrage, right? Like what Buddy was saying with his deal with the Bush administration, he was outraged and realized that that didn't help the world any. So when there's a bumper sticker that says, if you're not outraged, if you're not mad like me, basically, then you're not paying attention. There's a lot of finger pointing and a lot of judgment, which is the problem today. So I agree with what Buddy's saying. But you can be outraged, sure. You can go and pick it and do it, of course, absolutely. But do it with intention and do it with responsibility. Outrage doesn't mean to sit on your roof with an AK-47, right? Like, what does outrage look like for you, right? And then if someone isn't outraged according to your definition, you can't judge them because you don't know what's happening with them internally. What if they, like Buddy, meditate and find peace and calm, and that is their contribution to what they want to give to the world? And that's not up to you. That's up to the individual.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And, one of the I think the best characteristics of you, Buddy, is the stance that you have where you do take a breath, you do go inward, and you're not someone that's going to be throwing chairs. There's a time and place, and you're not that kind of person, generally speaking. You do try to pull from kindness, even, with family and all this stuff. And so I think that those are really good values.
Yeah, thank you, John. With the family and other stuff, and the directness, bringing it full circle, if that's even possible today.
Half circle. Today's a half circle.
Bringing it half circle. It's just, John, it's mayhem on this side. If I showed this apartment, it looks like a tweaker lives here. I'm moving out. I got to drive. Yeah, the whole list is happening, my friend. Going on tour, booking and doing it all myself, getting rid of everything in this apartment, getting ready to go take care of a friend chemo and visit family in Texas.
There's a lot going on in Buddy's life. We're catching him inside a tornado right now.
Yeah, we've all got a list. Mine is just at the peak of itself. So let me ask you, John, as a therapist, when you do communicate with someone as important as your family directly, when one makes that choice and communicates directly with people who aren't practiced in communicating directly, who are talking about the issue behind the issue's back, whatever it may be, finding out secondhand that she's doing this or he's doing that, when you decide to talk it out directly and they are not open to it, I have heard throughout my life about people choosing their own family, about people setting these boundaries, all the stuff that's super commonplace. We've all heard it and we all know it probably to be really healthy choices. It's never been an option for me.
Mm.
The idea of shutting out family uh, is just not an option. As a therapist, does it need to, can you tell me, does it need to be an option if there's just not going to be receptive to that communication and it continues to hurt me?
Oh, but it continues to hurt you. That's the piece, you know. All we can do is express ourselves to people. What they do with it is on them. I would go into it with zero expectation. It's the expectation cliff that we fall off of that disappoints us and hurts us. So if we say, here's what I need to express for me and what's valuable to me, I announced it on a podcast and I don't want to be passive aggressive. So I'm going to tell you in person, right? And so it's for you, it's for Buddy Wakefield. And then what they decide to do with it, hopefully they surprise you and hold it with two hands. But if they don't, man, that's on them, you know? And so, but if it gets toxic, right? If they're like coming at you, if they're assassinating your character, if they're making you feel small, then yes, it is healthy for you to draw boundaries to protect yourself. I don't care if it's family. I don't care if it's your partner. I don't care who it is. You should definitely protect yourself with boundaries if they're coming at you by assassinating your character or making you feel small. It's not easy to do, but you gotta do that for you because no one else will do it. Or else you just take the bashing and then you have resentment, you know?
That's what's starting to happen is
Yeah. Yeah.
taking the
And
back.
that's why I texted my friend. I didn't want to harbor resentment. I started to feel the stones in my shoe. I started to spend some time thinking, well, fuck, I'm getting mad and he doesn't know I'm mad. I have a responsibility to say, hey, can you please stop? If he doesn't stop, then I have a right to be mad. And then, our friendship's going to drift. But I said, I got to at least be direct. And then once I was direct, he was like, oh shit, I feel bad. I'm sorry. And so now it's all good, right? The stone's gone. He may be mad, but I don't know what he's feeling, but I can't be responsible for that. All I can do is be responsible by being direct. And then, maybe he's learned something from it, or maybe he's learned something about me. Maybe he's held up a mirror. I don't know, that's his journey. But my responsibility was to be direct.
Let's say the same, something similar was happening with your mom in a situation where you need to be direct, John.
Yeah.
And I know, well, we all know how important mothers are, and since
Sure.
in our entire walk through this world, uh, there's a reverence and a respect that needs to be, that is just ingrained and in place. And my mom growing up was my hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something did shift along the way, largely politically, and there was also a meaner spirit that got involved I didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then like when I go to Vipassana and I listen to the teacher talk about, or I read about the parent being the most respected, respected, and so the idea of cutting out in any way, or I don't know how to. There's a point when I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to. I can't.
Yeah, I
Respect
don't
to
think
me is
it's dude, it's a muscle you haven't exercised before. It's like walking into a CrossFit box and trying to snatch when you've never done it before. You're gonna hurt yourself. So I think the fact that it's on your mind that you have your intention, I think you should definitely take the shallow end of the pool, but you should do it. You should, because your mom loves you and is not going to disown you.
sure.
But your
Well,
directness, no, she won't. Your directness is going to hold up a mirror. She's going to um, eventually look at it and maybe start asking questions, within herself, or maybe decide, hey, I should not be passive, or maybe I should be direct like Buddy. Maybe it's going to be a teaching for her. But I think that you should be direct and start practicing that for you, you know. Uh, and I know it's different. I have a very small family. You have a huge family. You're from the South. There's probably, lots of big dinners with biscuits and shit. Like, I get it. It's very sticky.
there are. You
Anyway,
nailed it.
I know it can be hard. I don't come from that kind of family. I've always been direct with my family. I'm almost too direct, right? I need to relax a little bit, but I think there's a lot of room for you, Buddy, to be more direct And when you sit in it and then you start to like yourself being direct, I think it's going to be great for you. And I think it's
I'm
going to be great
loving
for
it.
it's going to be great for your recovery. It's going to be great for your friendships. Like, here's a great example, just kind of to end on this. Hey, can you text me, John, and give me some ideas on what the touchy subject should be instead of no, seriously, instead of asking me every fucking week, 24
Oh
hours
my
before the
goodness.
podcast, what's the touch? Okay, you don't have to prove it. Don't look for your phone, buddy.
Well, I'm
You
going
don't
to
have
go
to
through
prove
the
it.
thread and
You
show
don't have
you
to
how
post
many
it. Okay,
times.
right.
Okay.
It's right, exactly. So look, buddy's already he's laughing, but he's been holding in this annoyance. And if he didn't say this, and if it wasn't direct, next week would come, and on Wednesday I'd be like, hey, what's the touchy subject? And he would fucking throw a chair. So I had no idea. The reason why I was asking him is because I want to give him creative control. I want to let him paint. I didn't know that he wants me to give him ideas as well. So now I do. He was direct with me, which I appreciate. So next Wednesday, I'm going to say, hey, buddy, here's 3 ideas that I have. Boom, boom, boom. Pick one or give me your own. And that's that, right? No more pebbles in the shoe. So I appreciate that directness. That was an exercise for you from the universe to now roll it into your family.
Thank you.
That was an awesome poem, buddy, by the way.
Thank you.
After we leave, don't close your computer because it needs to upload. And everyone that hung out
We
today,
need to
thank you.
record an intro too.
Thank you for your hearts. Thank you for being here. Tell a friend. These conversations will always be honest. That's our one promise to you. They may go sideways. We may throw boomerangs that don't come back. They might end up in other people's yards. But you know what? You're going to get a wordsmith, a beautiful poem, and some sideways dialogue. Come with
Shit off
questions.
my yard. Kids,
Leave
get
with
off my
more.
lawn.
Thank you for listening. Be well.